Rabbis, you're trying to tell people not to read the Tanakh. You're trying to hide the Sabbath from people. You're trying to find workarounds in the Torah. Let's explore. Now, the reason I bring this up is because our Judaic brothers in the land of Israel have a popular tradition where they will take their tassels and dye them using sea snail mucus, which is crazy, right? So sea snail carcasses are used in the process. And if you read Leviticus 11:11, there isn't just a prohibition on unclean foods. There's also a prohibition on touching the carcasses of the unclean animals. And for the sea, you have two witnesses. For the sea animals, you have to see fins and scales. You have to spot two things to know that it's a clean animal. And for land, it's two witnesses. It's a divided hoof and one that chews the cud. Of course, chewing the cud is very symbolic of synthesizing information properly. It's like rumination, so to speak. You know, when we ruminate over something, like we're actually thinking about it. And, you know, these animals, they chew the thing and then they burp it out at the same time. They chew and then they burp. They chew and they burp. But they don't just swallow. And so, taking these two witnesses into account, it's interesting to note that these Jews will dye their tassels using an unclean sea animal carcass. Technically, they're not even supposed to be touching it. That's like just as bad as dipping it in pig fat. Seriously, that's just as bad as dipping your tassel in pig fat. Yeah, no difference there. But I was going to say, this is all in relation to, a pizza that I got. And typically, if someone gives me a pizza with pepperoni on it, what I've done is just picked it off. But like, I've kind of had that verse stuck in the back of my head, because not only does, it say not to eat it, but it also says don't touch it. And then, of course, that has touched me, that has touched the food that I've eaten, regardless, even if I am not eating the swine itself. And so that applies to me too. So when I'm preaching about this, I'm also preaching to myself. Of course, I'm preaching against tradition, but I'm also, preaching against my actions and figuring out how to reevaluate and how to move forward the right way. Because for 5 years, I've tried abstaining from pork and from unclean foods and haven't eaten it at all. It's just that if I get something that has it on it and I'm super hungry and no one has anything else, what I've done is pick it off. But I try to do my best not to wind up in those situations, especially because I'm not only doing that, I'm trying to keep the Shabbats and I'm trying to do everything else that comes with the Torah. And one thing that's really important for us all to remember is that we are supposed to not... Again, here's a warning to avoid the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees by remaining vigilant to the traditions. One of the claims is, you can't have a cheeseburger. Or you can't have a cheeseburger. No, that's not allowed by Torah. All right, well, Abraham served the guests at his tent in Genesis 18, meat and milk together. He's doing milk, he was doing roasted meat, he was doing cheeses. So is Abraham in the wrong? So we got to stop following these traditions and actually pry open the Word, because the Word has all the answers. Trust me.